There you go.
All right, everybody. I'm Steve Grapp. We're here with Community Conversations. We are at Feastro's Fire and Grill. It is Tuesday night. We're all here watching the DNC roll call. Had our regular meetup. We moved it here tonight. We had about 16 people. That's not bad for a brand new location. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's just go around.
Better than a dozen.
Yeah, tell me who all is here. I mean, at the table. There's a bunch of people here, but who's here at the conversation tonight?
My name is Roan. I'm a student at Little Rock Central. I'm also one of the leaders of the Young Leftists at Little Rock Central. And I'm just really happy to be here. I've been involved with a lot of local causes, a lot of statewide causes, and I look forward to doing work here in Arkansas.
All right.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So I am LaToya Morgan, and I am a librarian with the Little Rock School District, and I'm also a part
Libraries are still legal in Arkansas?
Barely.
For
Barely.
forever.
Oh, yeah. We're going to make sure we take care of our libraries, but they are coming after it.
Yes.
They're coming after it, but guess what? We're prepared.
All right.
So I'm not really concerned about that. But it's just great to be here, and it's great to see a woman running for president of the United States.
And
it's so
winning.
Empowering. Yeah, and winning, and winning.
When we fight?
We win.
We win.
Period.
We'll get to talk about it. I think this is a good thing to talk about is just the joy that this campaign is getting back and how it's igniting people. We'll get to that. But Kwame, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, make America happy again. I am Kwame Abdul-Bey. I am a candidate for Arkansas House District 69, which is northern Pulaski County and southern Faulkner County. And I am running because I think we can all agree that all Arkansans are humans, and humans have basic needs. And when they have those basic needs, not only are they happy, but they thrive. We need to make sure that we have legislation that speaks to that.
Before we get into it, because I really want to talk about Kamala and the fire that we're seeing across Arkansas, but you made a really good point last week when we got together about, I asked you the question, what are you going to do if you get elected? And you compared it to when you were a paramedic or an EMT. Can you give us that analogy again? Because that is so true.
The thing is that my training, the mindset that I'm trained to have on the ambulance is you have to first do no harm, and whenever you see harm, you have to stop it. You have to stop the bleeding. You have to stop the pain so that we can get the patient to a location where they can begin the healing process. And that's what needs to be done here in Arkansas. We have a legislature right now that is practicing legislative violence against certain communities throughout Arkansas, and we have to stop that violence, and we have to get those that have been harmed to a place where they can begin to heal. So again, that's recognizing everyone's humanity, and when we recognize that we're all humans and we're all on that same basic level, then that's where the conversations really need to begin.
I see you were about to say something.
Please.
Go ahead, Roan.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the analogy that you've just given. And
Yes.
I think that it's really hard to look at Arkansas. I think it's absolutely very valid. I think it's very one-to-one. But at the same time, Arkansas has gaping wounds that have existed for hundreds of years. It's as though we're trying to treat a patient that has chronic alcoholism and has been that way for 40 years.
Yes.
Like, how do we reverse all of these systems of oppression and systems of suffering and pain? There are just so many communities that are so far from undergoing the healing process. And we're going to get there, of course. But even getting to the point where we can begin our healing and begin our rebuilding and begin our prospering, we have to first stop the pain and the suffering and the gaping wounds that have existed for hundreds of years.
And it took time to get to where we are now, and it's going to take time to get out of this situation. But again, we have to stop the harm that's being done right now. And the harm will not be stopped with the current configuration of the General Assembly. And so we have to proactively change that configuration to one that is more harm averse instead of one that's really legislating harm. And there's so many, really, it would take several sessions just to pass a bill every hour of the session. We still wouldn't be able to provide for that gaping wound that you're talking about. But we have to start somewhere. We can't just not do anything and be frozen in the headlights.
I'm going to take your analogy a little bit further, Roan. You jumped on top of Kwame's analogy, and you talk about it's like alcohol. It's more like alcoholism. But over the last several sessions, it's like the legislative session says, okay, yeah, the state of Arkansas is suffering from alcoholism, and I'm tired of trying to help them get off of alcohol, and I'm tired of trying to give treatment and trying to help and trying to provide the resources to help somebody with alcohol. Let's go back to the 50s. We didn't have these problems back then, and everybody drank martinis. So let's make sure that everybody has to drink martinis, and we're going to make it where it's backwards.
I think Roan hit the nail on the head. We're not going back to the 50s. We never left the 50s. The crisis at Little Rock Central High School never ended. And so we have to realize that there's a through line from 1957 to 2024.
We have to talk about it.
Yes, we have to communicate.
We have to communicate. We have to say it's present. We have to say that it exists and not act like it doesn't. And then give people therapy.
Yes.
Allow them to talk about it. Allow them to feel.
What you're saying is, being a white man that grew up with a very diverse background, to hear the signaling and to hear the racism that is in everyday language that I hear. Mm-hmm. And it is almost like people say things to see, hey, are you with me? And it is everywhere. It's the people that you don't think are racist. And we don't talk about it. And it's just tough.
And when you're outspoken, people want to silence you. They want to censor you.
That's going on in Arkansas right now.
It's going on in school districts across this state as well.
Oh, especially with the teachers.
Especially with the educators.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I think that being able to talk about how we never really left the 50s and we never really left segregation and how those systems of oppression still carry on to today's life, I think that topic especially is what scares the General Assembly in Arkansas so much. It is why they tried to ban AP African American Studies. Because if you look at the main criticisms that have been levied towards the AP African American Studies curriculum, almost all of it has to do with the chapters that cover the civil rights movement, meaning that the Republican legislatures are fine to an extent talking about the horrors of slavery and the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and everything that followed that up until Jim Crow, up until the civil rights movement, up until the 1960s, where we entered a revolutionary period where people started questioning whiteness and criticizing whiteness as a system of oppression. When we get to that part in the curriculum, our lawmakers press pause and say, no, actually, we need to put a different spin on things.
I think
we cannot jive with that being part of our school curriculum, teaching kids that maybe these systems still carry on today. Maybe whiteness is inherently bad.
I think that the pause has actually pushed a lot earlier. One of the least taught segments of American history is actually Reconstruction. Mm-hmm. You start teaching Reconstruction, that's dangerous. It's dangerous because it shows how you can take a people and you oppress them, and once you take your thumb off of them, take your knee off of their neck, they can get up, straighten their backs, and do for self just like that. And that scares them because they're afraid that it can happen again. And then they don't have the ability to continue these systems of oppression because those that are being oppressed are no longer in that same servitude position.
The problem becomes when you start looking at true history and explaining that the Democrats of Arkansas up through Faubus are technically the Republicans today.
Yes.
We look back at Winthrop Rockefeller that was elected. He was a Republican that was elected in an all-white South where everybody was Democrats. And he was progressive. And he was outspoken. And he was the rebound against Faubus and against the Dixiecrats, as they're called.
And when you start studying Reconstruction era, you understand Reconstruction era, you had two things that coexisted in the same entity. It was conservatism and progressivism that were coalesced in one body called the Republican Party.
Yes. And then the progressive we literally did a flip-flop. And the old Democrats finally, Arkansas was the last southern state to go all red, to go Republican. But that's because it took longer for the Dixiecrats, the old Democrats, to realize they were actually Republicans. And that's who we have running our state right now. But it's really, my guess is 17 to 20% of the population, of the voting age population. Now, that's not the registered voters because we have the worst voter registration numbers in the nation. But when you have 15 to 20% of the population making all the rules, and they're afraid of the majority, that's what we're getting right now.
They're afraid of us finding out.
Yeah, I think it's actually even smaller than that. Right now in District 69, there's roughly about 16,000 registered voters. Of those 16,000 registered voters, only, I think, 1,200 are registered Republicans. So that's less than 10%.
But we have a big, gigantic swath of independents.
Yes.
And it comes down to the message, and it comes down to a lot of identification with national politics. And they're like, oh, I'm a Trumper, so I'm going to vote for the Republicans in my district. But the Republicans, in this case, David Ray in your district is lined up with Trump. But they don't understand that. And what's happening on the local level is you can't look at your national politics and decide who you're going to vote for on the local level because you're going to get yourself upside down.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing now.
I think that this conversation about the legislature and their activities over the past year has very well illustrated how nationalism is fundamentally incompatible with an accurate telling of history. Because you look at nationalistic politicians and even nationalistic think tanks, they're not concerned with actually telling American history the way that it played out. They're not concerned with talking about how figures like Fred Hampton were murdered by the government and conspired against. They aren't particularly interested in talking about the horrors of the Jim Crow South. And those are just to name the big occurrences. They're not particularly concerned with talking about and spending too much time on speaking about the specific day-to-day life of minority groups in America throughout our history. And to truly appreciate our country and to truly appreciate our history, you have to understand the struggles that have existed throughout it, that have shaped our culture, that have made our culture so great. Because without those struggles, our culture wouldn't be even a fourth of what it is right now. So to truly be patriotic about our culture, you have to be anti-nationalistic in a way, I think.
And like she said, you have to be communicating and having these discussions with one another so that you can learn about each other and develop empathy for each other.
We're going to keep having these community conversations, and we're going to wrap this up. We're about 15 minutes. People generally don't like listening to us more than about 15 or 20 minutes, but hey, get a community conversation going in your neighborhood. Just tonight, we had people here from Faulkner County, White County. There were like 4 or 5 counties here. tonight in Sherwood, and we've got one coming up Friday night in Benton at Pasta J's. I know Alex Holiday was here tonight, and we're looking at a place in Lakewood to probably start setting one up. I want to get one up in Gravel Ridge and that area set up. We have people from Conway here tonight. We're getting Maureen Skinner and that group. We're getting one set up in Conway. But hey, it doesn't take much. Just find a place that'll let us come in, set up, invite friends. We'll make a Facebook post. We'll help publicize it. I think that this is important, just bringing people together. No itinerary. It's just breaking bread or having drinks or something and talking and getting to know each other better. Thoughts?
Absolutely.
This is what democracy truly looks like.
All right.
This is to me, this is the antithesis of apathy. Because I think that apathy has brought us to this position where we're having to face a fully red legislature that's fully interested in ripping away our rights, not only as people, but as civic members of a democracy. I think the only reason that we're here is because of apathy. People's apathy towards others, people's apathy towards even themselves, people's apathy towards their own lives. I think what drives so many people away from Arkansas and Little Rock is because I think a lot of people genuinely hate how hopeless it feels at times. How people feel like others have given up on their lives. Not just politics, but their lives. Now, you get a lot of that going to the more rural parts of the state, too. And I think that's really tragic because this state could be amazing. This state could be one of the best states in the country. And in fact, I think it's
land of
on course to be.
opportunity.
Yeah, we hear a lot of negative. Our public school system is actually pretty dang good. There's some tweaks to it that we need to make. The LEARNS Act is hurting it right now. If we can get pre-K passed, if we can have after-school and summer programs, if we can get more money for special education, if we can get more money for children in poverty, we can turn our public education system around. And Arkansas is a great place to live. People are genuinely happy here.
Instead of $7 million being invested into putting cell phones away, when kids are starving, when there are deficits in
there should be
reading,
free
math,
lunch.
and science, when families are in transition, we spent $7 million to hide the phone.
And not only that, did y'all see how much money Tim Griffin just got for raises for all the attorneys in his office? Mm-hmm. Holy cow. One attorney jumped from like $125,000 to $185,000.
Yes.
Like they just spent so much money, and all they're trying to do is defeat the citizens. They're trying to take our voice away.
Yes.
So they're hiring more people and giving them more money to come after us. This is like Germany in the 30s.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank all. Any last words? Last words go around the table to say goodbye, to close it up for the night.
Apathy is boring.
No, come out and have fun. We have fun.
Find your voice.
I'll try to be brief. I did have a lot. I know we're trying to wrap up, but I just want to say that to your point about Arkansas being amazing and having a really strong educational system, I'll say this. Our teachers are some of the most resilient and strong people I've ever met in my life, and I think they're maybe some of the strongest and most resilient people in the country. Because as their jobs and livelihoods and their entire life is being threatened by the state and by the government, they have stood right beside their students and stood up for the classes that they teach and stood up for the education that they represent.
Yes,
I think that there's a lot of hope in that.
Yes,
There's
and
absolutely
they're
a lot of
even
hope.
standing by the students as we sue to make sure we keep our AP African American Studies and some
Shout
other
out Miss
things.
Walls.
Yes.
Miss Ruthie Walls. Shout out.
Okay, thanks, y'all. This has been Community Conversations, and y'all join us. Follow us online. Follow us on Facebook, standuparkansas.com. We will see you around the corner. Thanks, y'all.
Goodbye.